So my name is Ramesh. I'm going to be moderating the panel today. As you guys know, this is about municipal GovTech, Civic Tech, like working group to really tackle the challenges on all layers of government or society from the municipal level, but even broader nationally and globally. So some of my experience is that I was a BetaNYC Civic Innovation Fellow from 2017 to 2018. My background kind of fits a lot of the spaces that you all have been talking about already. I come from a family of undocumented immigrants. I was a veteran. It's very easy for me to imagine myself as one of those disenfranchised people. However, this kind of work excited me. The real, like, earnest, not just attempt, but I see earnest work in trying to include a lot of people into the process, making it more democratic, this tech space. So that's kind of how I define myself here in my role. And I'll have all the other panelists introduce themselves, and we could start with Rachel.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel. I'm one of the co-founders of Putting It Forward. We're a nonprofit organization that seeks to empower young technologists and create opportunities and pathways for them to pursue social impact careers. I joined the team back in 2017. I was part of our inaugural cohort of what we call Civic Digital Fellows, so students who spend their summers working in government, or federal government more specifically, tackling different innovation issues. Kind of got inspired to join this work. Grew up in Arizona, was very involved on a local and state level, served on my youth advisory boards for both my mayor and my governor. Didn't come to this from a tech perspective at all. Got to college and found that computer science and technology was a really wonderful way to employ kind of real world solutions. I felt like I was actually able to build and create something versus just reading a textbook, and really enjoyed that sort of thinking and started finding ways to combine my interests. And yeah, helped start the fellowship because we felt like there weren't enough pathways for students with like-minded interests. I think if you just project, it should be fine. Cool. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Emily. I was a former Coding It Forward Civic Digital Fellow, and I now, for the past year or so, have worked at a startup in downtown Brooklyn called Propel. Our focus is on low-income Americans who are generally shut out of what we consider like the tech and innovation demographic. We specifically build financial tools that help folks who are on government benefits like the SNAP program or the WIC program better manage their benefits, as well as providing them more opportunities to earn more or otherwise structurally try and like address the issue of lack of income. I've always kind of been interested in civic technology. I'm from the Bay Area originally. Growing up there, I think I actually had been very turned off by the possibilities that tech offered, kind of seeing like the underbelly of it as it was really starting to boom and drive out a lot of residents and folks in my own community. But I ended up, after I had left to go to college at NYU, it kind of became like I learned more about it, and it became, there was a realization where it basically was like, technology is not a cause of evil or a cause of good. It's inherently just a tool. And whoever wields those tools, any tools structurally, are able to sort of enact a lot of change or amass a lot of power. It became something, a particular interest of mine in kind of discovering how we can leverage that for folks who are traditionally underrepresented or otherwise left out of that context.
Hey, I'm Zhi. I was a former Civic Digital Fellow with Rachel was managing us last summer, and there I worked for the Census Bureau. Oh, it's blinking. Maybe this one works. All of them are blinking. Okay.
You can go to either side.
Can you close yours and see if that one works? Okay, I can just go to each other side. No, all of them are blinking. Okay,
Mine's.
No, I was working.
Is this the only?
Close yours.
Yeah, it works.
No, I mean, close yours and let's see.
No, I just opened this one.
Okay, there we go. It's
It
only
works
like only a
now.
limited amount that works. Hey, I'm Z. I'm a former Civic Digital Fellow for last summer, where I interned at the Census Bureau, and I got into BetaNYC via being an intern at the Borough President's Office. So you can see this really recurring theme where I really like going through and experiences while as an intern at certain agencies. I got into civic tech via the various internship opportunities that Hunter CUNY gave me. Originally, I got into Department of City Planning, where I learned about Pluto, the land use slash tax map that New York City has, and that really resonated with me to kind of figure out how to best portray that data and also inform residents of that data. And then after there, I joined another city agency, so I went to the Department of Transportation for 2 years, where I developed really a ton of my tech skills. So there was a lot of opportunity for me through the City University of New York to kind of continue and really learn all these different technologies and opportunities, while also engaging in a lot of learning a lot of policy, and also engaging a lot of what the city means to me, because I never traveled outside of suburban Queens, kind of. That's how I kind of call it, because I was really trapped in that area, because it was very much of a car culture. So when I first stepped foot into Manhattan and learned about the city as a whole and all the services it provided me and my family, I was really grateful.
Hi everyone, my name is Jennifer Maldonado, and I'm also a former Civic Innovation Fellow. My current position is working as a discretionary approvals consultant with Manhattan Community Board 1, and I would just have to say that my work involves handling several subcommittees, including youth and education, landmarks and preservation, but my main focus is pretty much being a sort of, I guess you can say, liaison or middleman with handling licensing applications before they come to the State Liquor Authority or the SLA. And I would say that definitely I'm a recent college grad as well, as of May 2019, and I've always had an interest, my interest still lies within the environmental field. So I think my experience working with BetaNYC, I was not really a tech person, never really had a thing for open data, didn't really know what open data was until being part of a fellow, and my experience definitely gave me opened my eyes as to the opportunities that actually data science, in a bigger scheme of things, I guess you can say, the opportunities that open data science can bring, and not just within any sort of with business, with the environmental field, with healthcare, right? So now that I work with a community board, which not only has I delved into local government, and I'm still my experience working within local government is still ever growing. I feel safe or more confident to say that I definitely have a better background as the tech space, and it sort of influenced my decisions long term in terms of my career track. Definitely would want to see where my next steps are. Hopefully, maybe merge environmental policy. That's my main path with open data and data science. So, yeah.
Okay, and now I know we already briefly talked a little bit about before, but I'll have some members of the audience introduce themselves too, and to talk for a brief moment just about your work, what brought you here, things like that, if you wish. But you two can start.
Hi, my name is Pam King Petrat, and I'm currently an adjunct professor at NYU Wagner, and I teach an Intro to Data Analytics class, as well as a database design course geared specifically at people who are afraid of math or those who don't like statistics. And my just a personal interest is in data literacy and technology literacy. And then there's another hat that I wear because I volunteer for America Needs You, which is a first generation kind of program for first generation college students. And so I really am just curious about what opportunities they might have in the fellows program. I'm helping you recruit essentially. But at the same time, I would love to hear from you guys more about how people see data separately rather than integrated, because it's actually just another form of communication. And I believe in this so much because I truly believe that if you can improve public services, there would be increased trust. And you can use data to bridge the divide. So that's why I'm here. I'd love to hear from you guys how we could kind of up the number of people we place across the board to make it better.
Would you like to introduce yourself again, too?
My name is Joyce Freeling. I am president of a network of organizations called Trendsetters Network. We all work in some aspect of education and civic space. Our primary focus now is building a New York National, International, all stakeholders content system for the shift to sustainability, because sustainability involves new values, new culture, new practices. And the majority of people are still functioning in an older paradigm. And we need to accelerate that shift to both handle climate change and deal with sustainability on a planet that will be, or projected to be, 11 billion people by the end of the century. We focus on youth leadership because they are the generations that are going to shape the future. They are the generations with the most stakeholder interest in the future. And we also focus on engaging vulnerable communities, low income and disconnected youth in these activities. And our campaign theme is Civics for Change. It means being engaged, being informed, participating, and calling those who are decision makers to account. But you need all the other steps to know how to do that. Our long-term mission is to cultivate a new societal ethic of obligation to successor generations, to foster long-term thinking, thoughtful planning, and responsible decision-making, because we're not being a responsible society at this time. So we need more social justice, and there is a greater opportunity to make that happen as we move ahead with the kind of shift that needs to take place. So again, we have a priority focus on engaging young people and finding the points of stimulation in terms of that engagement, and then supporting them with education, job training, and so on.
Thank you all for sharing. Just going to shout out a lot of BetaNYC love, and we'll leave some time at the end so you guys can also ask some questions. And thank you guys for coming. So I'll start with my first question is just I'm going to ask all of you to describe the origins of your program, and we could start with Rachel.
So like I touched on briefly earlier, the Civic Digital Fellowship was founded by a group of, undergraduate students. And essentially, a lot of us were taking CS classes. A few of my co-founders in particular were taking one called Innovation and Technology in Government, where they spent the semester kind of working as consultants to local, state, and federal government agencies on technical issues. And at the end of that semester, really wanted to continue doing that work, but there weren't any internships available. So that's kind of a problem when you're a student in college and you can't interview for a full-time position, but you're passionate about this space and want to become involved. So we went to our professor, who happened to be a former deputy CTO at the White House, and he had a lot of wonderful connections in government because of his former position. And he connected us with a man named Jeff Mizell, who at the time was another type of fellow, a Presidential Innovation Fellow, which is a group of mid to senior level employees who are brought into government to work on innovation challenges. And Jeff had been looking to hire college students and was traveling the country, having a really difficult time doing that because making government attractive to young people is a very hard sell. So we essentially met with Jeff and we said, hey, we actually have a ton of college students right here who are interested in doing the work, raising their hands and saying, yes, like count me in, but we just have no idea how we can hire them. And so in about 10 weeks, I think it was, we built this program from the ground up, had an application process that launched, and within 2 weeks, we received over 220 applications from around the country from students at dozens of colleges and universities who were saying they were interested in working with us. So it was really just kind of we've had the need as people ourselves for these sorts of positions, and instead of waiting around for someone to make it happen, decided to launch it ourselves. Have been going pretty much ever since. Can you go back like 2 slides? Yeah. So we've been around since 2017. We've had 3 cohorts of students now, 2 of which are represented on this panel. I guess all 3 because I was part of the first cohort. But we've had over 100 fellows now go through the program, worked with 8 different federal agency partners across the past 3 summers. And this summer, we're going to be bringing in a cohort of about almost 90 students. So the program has pretty much quadrupled since the first summer that we started it. So we went from 14 fellows our first summer in 2017 to 36 in 2018 to 54 in 2019, and now this summer almost 90. So it's grown very rapidly, which I think demonstrates a super strong demand from students to do this type of work, and we're going to continue building out the program as far as we can. But yeah, it's a little bit about where we started and a little bit about where we're going as well.
Thank you, Rachel.
Mm-hmm.
For the BetaNYC, Jen and Zhi can take that question together.
I'm also the fellowship assistant at BetaNYC. So I just started a couple months ago. But to talk about the Civic Innovation Fellows, we also have to pay homage to the Presidential Innovation Fellows, so the PIFs that Rachel was talking about. So this program really started during Hurricane Sandy, where CUNY found a need for a cohort of students to come into government. Gail Brewer, the newly minted borough president of the time, felt that we should train students in data because of her previous position as the technology on the technology committee in the city council. So she started the Civic Innovation Fellows program as a part of the CUNY Service Corps in the office, and then invited Noel when she met Noel at a lot of open data conferences, because Gail also signed a lot of open data bills. Well, she introduced almost all the open data bills in city council, so that was great. So when Noel started, Noel felt that it was a perspective of teaching the fellows or training the fellows in certain civic tech stuff. So how to play with data and how to play with, more importantly, the new open data that's getting released by the city agencies. So our cohort primarily picks students from people who apply to the CUNY Service Corps. So that's through I think, various CUNYs. I think there's only 8 CUNYs or
8 cuties, but kind of narrowed down to a few cuties now, from what I know. So
Yeah.
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 So, so I was part of the cohort for 2018 to 2019, and pretty much during my time as a Civic Innovation Fellow, pretty much how we break it down is sort of like the fall semester is the boot camp. So that boot camp introduced me to different platforms such as BoardStat, Socrata, Cardo, a little bit of QGIS. Also my first time experiencing learning how to use R, which is pretty awesome for me because I was so intimidated. And then the second half, which is spring semester, winter, we have like a break. Springtime comes around, we have pretty much we're deployed. And actually, it wasn't until our cohort that both Emily and Noel decided to kind of switch things up a bit or spice things up a bit. So that's where we started using what's called DAR, or Data Assisted Requests. Pretty much Manhattan Borough President staff, or pretty much anyone really, someone from a nonprofit organization or an individual yourself can come to us, submit a request on Screen Door. So my task, for example, I had to work on mapping the distribution of landmark church sites that were at risk of having their landmark status removed within a specific area in Lower Manhattan. And that was a request submitted by one of the staff members. And yeah, at the end of the fellowship, I had the opportunity to bring my skills and start working with Manhattan Community Board 1, which is pretty much essentially an advisory board. So thankfully, I was able to bring my experience with BetaNYC under the Civic Innovation Fellowship into into my actual current position. So that's what I have to say.
Yeah, so just to kind of reiterate, the mission of the Civic Innovation Fellows is to kind of train our cohort in the boot camp semester and then deploy them. So they will have the skills, and also they can help community members or organizations that don't have the technology capacity. Yep.
And I'll just briefly mention that some of the names that were mentioned, Noel Hidalgo is the Executive Director of BetaNYC, and Emily Goldman is the Director of the Civic Innovation Program. She regretfully cannot be here today, but she sends her best wishes. Okay, and I'm going to direct the next 2 questions to Emily Fong and Zhi. Given the evolution of the civic tech space, where do you see the program going? And also for everyone, since all of you have been a part of these programs, how can you share how it's influenced your career journeys? So we could start with Emily.
Sure. I think the Civic Digital Fellowship certainly has an incredibly bright future ahead of it. We've already seen in the last 4 years, this program in particular really changed the perception of who should be in, or should loosely, but should be in these kind of high-level innovation spaces. In the past, the thinking and certainly some of the advice that students like I have received was you should not try to do this now. You should take like 8 years in the private sector, figure out how to actually do this master technique or do whatever you can to like absorb and soak up the knowledge. And in a decade, when you feel like if you're still understated, you should come back and try and fix things in government. Naturally, a lot of people have not necessarily found this to be a satisfying answer, though personally I understand why that's the case. Government presents a lot of unique challenges, and if you don't feel confident in your skills to address this, obviously, then having experience to back that up is helpful. But I think coding it forward has, in particular, like really pushed people to question that a little bit. Everybody has, even if they don't have 10 years of private sector experience under their belt, the ability to come in and kind of be an individual contributor at some level. And I think the impact that even the fellows in my class, the second cohort of this program, were able to have on the actual process and inner workings of government, whether that was bringing in different kinds of culture or different kinds of tools, or even one of our fellows from our class who also passed the BetaNYC program. I think he redesigned a machine learning model for the census that actually saved upwards of a couple $1 million for the agency. So even though we aren't necessarily like VPs of product at Microsoft, we're still people who kind of were able to come in and have a tremendous impact from the get-go. And I think just by being persistent about doing that work, coding it forward has kind of shifted that conversation.
So for my experience, yeah, as Emily said, there are a lot of like stigma when you work in technology and government. Like they only want you to do technology. They don't want you to do like anything else. Like here's a set of requirements, do that. So like a lot of interns or a lot of people who are entry level in government normally get like exposure to a very like black box or like a siloed community where they only work on X feature. So they don't get that policy, or they don't get the or they don't get the policy, or even get experience in like learning about environmental issues their softwares might impact, or even if like for example working with the religious facilities project, that has been a long ongoing project. So the first iteration was identifying vulnerable landmarked religious facilities, and now our cohort is expanding more and working with other stakeholders such as the land use department in the Manhattan Borough President, but also NYU. I think NYU planning a master's students trying to create an action book to preserve these religious facilities. So there's a constantly expanding and also teaching our fellows and to how to apply not only tech skills but apply a lot of the policy they learn, and also their concern with the community, because they're currently embedded in the community, and I would feel that they are a lot more inclined to help the community because it's their future.
I guess to sort of recap, I'm not sure how to answer that question, but I think more so from a personal experience, I think definitely I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity to be part of the Civic Innovation Fellowship. I did not anticipate that to be my experience for my senior year of college. I could have gone a very different route, which maybe I may not have been here today speaking to you all. So, but definitely the CIF has given me that safe, open space to just be genuine with what I know and what I don't know about data science or open data. I could definitely say that my confidence using such software and platforms has changed. I don't feel so backed off or turned off when I hear such terminology, especially using different tools online. It gives you much more of a relief knowing that you have such tools that are readily available, but that you can use them and utilize them for whatever means you may want to use it for, whether it be a project or if you're working in a government agency, utilize that for something that you're working on to showcase to a client. So I think moving forward, I could only see the opportunities that would be offered or expanded for future fellows. So yeah.
And to the second part, if all of you can just briefly talk about how the experiences in these fellowships impacted your overall career trajectory, or how you envision your career trajectory. Rachel, you want to start?
Sure. So I didn't really tell the beginning part of my story, but prior to this fellowship, had been very involved with local and state government back home in Arizona, and got to college thinking I was going to major in government. That didn't quite work out, considering I ended up majoring in media arts and sciences, which is a combination of computer science and design. But the reason for that was I really loved the practical learning and training that I received in that sort of program. And, I wasn't just reading from a textbook, but was really actually building and actively participating in my classes. And ended up deciding I wanted to use those skills still in my community, because that was what I was really passionate about. So I had gone home after my freshman year, worked for a local digital firm that essentially built websites for nonprofit organizations and local community organizations, and helped pass one of the biggest transit bills to ever pass in Phoenix. It was a $32 billion proposition to get us light rail. We don't quite have the public transit systems that cities like New York and DC have, So that was a really exciting win and really motivated me to continue using my technical skills in a community building capacity, and ended up joining the fellowship after my junior year of college, and kind of found that this world existed not only on the local level but truly on the state and federal level as well, and felt that working from a federal lens really gave me an opportunity to affect the most possible number of people. I think there's different types of change that can be enacted on a local, state, and federal level, but numbers wise, obviously, the federal government reaches the most amount of people across the country. And after I did the fellowship, truly did not know what I was going to continue doing after that, and was actually presented an opportunity to continue building and growing it. So I've been with the team ever since I was a fellow. It's been, I think, 3 years now almost, this coming June, and have been full-time for a year, serving as our executive director as well. So it's truly transformed my entire career trajectory in the sense that this is what I do day in and day out now. I think about these problems and how we're creating pathways for young people, both on this panel and beyond, to really become a part of this space. And I'm very happy that I found this niche and was kind of in the right spot at the right time.
Like Rachel, I've also been kind of nursing a pre-existing interest in government before I started in college. When I got to college, that sort of merged a bit more with my developing interest in justice and equity. And naturally, the addition of technology to that nexus of interest fit really well with a civic tech lens. Where I really struggled was trying to figure out how to translate what I was really passionate about and doing at school to the real world. So when I was still in school, I kind of pinged around a number of organizations here. I interned for Civic Hall down in Manhattan, and just a variety of other similar nonprofits. But it wasn't until I was accepted as a 2018 Civic Digital Fellow that I really got to jump into the space and really learn firsthand what it was like to work in government on that level, and as Rachel said, on that scale. I think a really important thing about the Civic Digital Fellowships is not just that it provides you that experience, but it also, for fellows, opens a lot of doors to really interesting people doing a lot of really interesting work that you never truly would have ever met otherwise. And it equips you with the confidence to kind of be able to be in these spaces and say, I am engaged, I am part of this, and I really want to continue doing this work. How can I help you do what you do? That kind of mentality and that assistance from Coding It Forward personally had really helped me, because once I had finished the program for the summer, I ended up staying on contract with my team at the Census Bureau for about almost a year after. So I was still getting that exposure through my senior year of college, like getting to work in government, even on a remote scale, trying to contribute in other ways. And after I had decided I was interested in kind of moving on to my next thing, Coding It Forward helped me kind of get into the right communities that would eventually connect me to my future manager, who was a former Code for America fellow who worked on the Get Cal Fresh program in California. Through kind of those, civic tech channels and those relationships. That's how I ended up at my current opportunity at Propel as an associate product manager. And so I think Coding It Forward had really helped me not just open the door, but actually actively kick them down when they were closed. So it was an immense impact on my own career personally.
So how the fellowships changed my experience and my job career was that I didn't really know about government. I didn't really care about my government being like just insulated from it, because my parents were very like, hey, we don't have any financial issues. Oh, don't worry, we're gonna get citizenship soon or something like that. So when I eventually got into college and eventually joined a ton of these city agencies, this like new world came to me, and I started really learning about the various issues the city was facing. Everything was kind of visible to me, like how the city really operates. It's just like this background, like wizardry that I didn't really care for previously. So after going through a lot of internships and then eventually Civic Digital Fellowship, I really started to understand how large of an impact that my tech skills could also play, but also how many other fellows or how many other students didn't have any technical background, but really wanted to kind of apply their social impact or apply their other disciplinary skills in a large way. So I felt that teaching people technology via these various data sets, or even just having like these small examples where they can start building on top and then start find their pathways through talking with political officials or talking with technologists, trying to solve these smaller issues. And that's through like the many hackathons I kind of attended and kind of trained myself in technology with.
I think before my experience with the fellowship, never really had any experience in working with government, local government, or in tech. I was purposely try to obtain internships or just be part of a work experience that was very strictly environmentally focused. But I think during my fellowship, I actually had the opportunity to have an internship as well. So 2 internships at the same time, working with one of my council members from Queens. And I actually had the task to research more on the proposed, this council member proposed how to convert Rikers Island into an open, sustainable, an area that can be sustainably used. So I had to do research on that, and I actually had to delve more into finding the air quality rates within that area, which I was hoping to use open data for, but unfortunately I couldn't find information actually. So instead of stopping there, I thought to myself, wait, if only, like, how could I make this a project off tangent to my internship, right? But I was a bit scared to ask my council member because, I actually had a research task to finish and work on. But I think now that my first-hand experience and job working with a community board, I think long-term for sure, I love growing, I love challenging myself, I love finding solutions to problems that I feel that could really be worked on at the individual level or as a collective. So I think I want to refine my skill set, my tech skill set, just some things to work on, especially pertaining to using GIS. Actually, because of this fellowship, I really had found an appreciation for maps, where before I found mapping totally boring. But that perception totally changed afterwards. So I think for now, I want to see myself being someone who can pave the way for herself and her career and merge my passion, working within environmental policy, hopefully, and merging that with something that is just more tech oriented. I don't know what that would be, but yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so before I open it up to the audience, if all of you can just, so perhaps maybe one answer from each organization, from Coding It Forward, Propel, and BetaNYC, to just give a brief description on what would you say the most interesting project you've been working on recently, and we could start with Emily. We could start with Rachel, sorry.
Yeah, do you mean like a fellowship-oriented project, or? Yeah.
Whatever you would characterize
If
as the
you
most interesting.
could perhaps go back to
Yeah.
one of our slides. Yeah, this one. I think this is a pretty good job summing up kind of some of the different work that our fellows get to work on every summer. So we kind of categorize our students into 4 different categories of software engineering, data science, design, and product management. So kind of your 4 main technology pathways. I won't say they're the only ones, but definitely where a lot of skill sets coalesce. And at each agency, essentially, they propose a different business need to us that they need help solving or working on. So, for instance, the example that Emily had brought up earlier that saved the Census Bureau a few $1 million was optimizing a very specific economic survey that they had where people are actually going in by hand to to go in and check that essentially the codes that businesses were using were correct. Obviously, that's a huge waste of human power and resources, and it's not super effective. And our fellow was able to go in and essentially create a machine learning algorithm that correctly categorized the businesses and essentially revamped that entire process and freed up humans to go do things that humans should be focused on, where we can use computing to our benefit and really make more efficient systems. So there's everything from that sort of project all the way to design and user research, understanding how people interact with government websites. So they actually got to work on the state.gov overhaul, which was a massive redesign, considering how many people the State Department reaches. And our fellows actually got to personally design a part of that relaunch. We also have products, so Freedom of Information Act requests are obviously super important to open data and super important to government transparency. And we had students who were essentially working on modernizing that process for people who don't understand what a Freedom of Information Act request is and perhaps don't have the legal knowledge or government knowledge to fulfill that paperwork themselves. So they were working on a very easy to use platform for basically patients to be able to get healthcare records from HHS and to better understand how their data was being used in kind of government-based healthcare matters. And finally, good old school software engineering as well. I don't even say old school, very contemporary modern methods, but really taking old systems. One of our fellows last summer said she was born after the system was created, which was, I think, appalling for some people to hear at the agencies, but also was a really realistic kind of statement in the sense that a lot of our government agencies are using systems that are outdated by decades, not years, decades. And so we bring in students with modern programming knowledge and understanding to help revamp these systems and bring them into the 21st century. But there's really a lot of exciting work. These are just a few of the examples. Emily and Zhi both worked on wonderful projects at the Census Bureau as well, making things there more open and transparent. But all of our projects are actually on GitHub as well. So if you're interested after this panel, you can go to github.com/codingitforward, and it has all of the presentations from previous years as well and the different work that our fellows have done.
Yeah, Emily and then Zhi.
So just to recap, Propel is a separate entity from what is mostly being discussed here. So we are a startup in downtown Brooklyn with a main focus on users who are on food stamp benefits. We developed a digital app that's available on the Play Store for Android phones and the App Store for iPhones to help people manage their food stamp benefits via digital interfaces. And I think what has been the most revealing and unique thing for me about working at Propel is the ability to kind of plug it into a world that I truly have really had the privilege to not have to experience. If anyone has friends or has been themselves on the SNAP program, you'll recall that the experience is not great. To check your balance on your actual EBT debit card, you have to call a phone line, you have to wait like a full minute, you have to remember all of your numbers, and it takes forever and it's just a great experience. So especially if you consider that the majority of people who we serve, at least 80% of our user base, are single mothers or mothers in some capacity with more than one child, trying to manage that experience with your children in tow at the grocery store, trying to plan ahead, it's kind of a nightmare. And so not only has learning about this particular user need been really important for me, I think it's also really opened my eyes to just how little a lot of people, the vast majority of people I met and in my social circle, know about what it's like to be low income. A question that I get all the time, and is kind of my favorite question because I love how much it upends somebody's expectations, is why do people who are low income need an app? If you have a smartphone, why would you then need to be on the food stamps program? There are a number of causes for this. One, first and foremost, something may have happened to you. Life takes really crazy turns, and so a lot of folks who have these resources still end up on food stamps because our general welfare net does not catch people who are really in need. Also, like, phones cost like $30 now. You can get a phone on Amazon for $30. The vast majority of our users are actually using devices that are markedly different from what traditional companies in Silicon Valley would have to design for. And our limitations includes really tiny amounts of phone storage, really devices that are old or outdated and not able to be kept up to date. So not only have there been kind of the challenges of learning about an experience that 40 million people go through that I've never really touched, there's also like really unique technical challenges for this demographic. And I think this informs and really fuels my passion for trying to develop systems that serve everybody, which I think is at the core and heart of what government service delivery should be about.
Yeah, Zhi, and then I'll open it up to the audience.
As we said before, the Civic Innovation Fellows over the past few years have been trying to reform our curriculum and trying to figure out how we can best serve the community. Through that process, we came up with DARs, Data Assistance Requests, and now it's really named to RADARs, which are Research and Data Assistance Requests. Emily just wanted me to mention that. But essentially, these RADARs allow community organizations or even the Manhattan Borough President to request stuff from us or help in visualizing data or trying to figure out how to best pull data from the Open Data Portal and turn that into policy. So one of the major things that Gail has been really pushing, and also the Deputy Borough President has been pushing, is community board representation. So how can we more fairly represent community boards and also geographically represent community boards, because there's usually community boards or a much more older demographic, and or they're more primarily mostly white. So we're trying to figure out how to best take the metrics that the Borough President has been collecting over, I think, since 2015, and kind of convert those metrics into figuring out what are next year's appointments. So throughout this process in the various years, the City Council finally passed a bill, and then it was enacted in it was passed in 2018, and then it was enacted in the fall of 2019. So community boards, Borough Presidents have to legally now ensure that community boards are fairly and geographically represented, but very few community boards have previously have metrics, and then currently now they have really bad metrics. So they have really general percentages. Some of them actually have like really helpful stuff like languages, but still it's not in a very usable format. So we're working with the fellows, trying to figure out how to best use census data, which I'm very happy that we're using the data, and trying to figure out how to essentially inform that decision of community board appointments. And I feel like that's really an important project, because we expose our fellows to the community boards, which BetaNYC really loves working with, because that's kind of the lowest level of government that anybody can kind of touch, and also it's the most people that are willing to really be a part of the community, because they actually have to dedicate like a ton of their time, like at nights, to like talk over some issues in their community.
Thank you all for sharing. So I'm going to open it up to the audience now. We're right at that 4 o'clock mark. But if everyone wants to hang back, talk about some interesting projects that you're working on, or for everyone, if you're not working on any particular project, just to any broad questions of where you think the civic tech gov space should be going, and what it could be doing better. And feel free to hang around and chat with all of us. And thank you all for coming. And thank you so much, BetaNYC, too, for coming.